Hello, we're just gonna give you a couple of minutes to make sure that everyone can join and make sure that everyone's connections is working as they should. And we will be starting very shortly. I think, yeah, I can see people joining. Perfect. All right, I think we should get started then. So welcome. We would like to welcome everyone for joining us today. Thank you so much for being here for this webinar called Breaking Out of the First Party App Data Box. And this is a RealityMine webinar, and it's about fueling strategic, smarter strategic decisions with rich consumer data. And we're very happy to have you all here. So today's agenda, we're going to cover a few things. We are going to start with a brief intro about RealityMine so that you know who we are and why we're talking about this. Then we're going to have a look at blind spots and challenges that come with relying only on first-party data. Then we'll go through 3 smart ways to leverage competitive app data. And finally, we will open it up to your questions. Before we get to that, I would like to do a bit of housekeeping. First of all, I want to confirm that everyone who has registered should receive the link, and so you will be able to watch the replay afterwards. And you can share that link with your colleagues as well. And during the session, please feel free to submit any questions that you would like to ask, but do it in the chat. We are not going to be taking audio questions or voice questions. And of course, we're going to try to get to as many questions as we can, but if we don't manage to get to yours, don't worry, because we will try to get back to you within 24 hours. So with that, it's my pleasure now to introduce you to today's presenters. So first of all, we have Luke Biggins, who is our Chief Client Officer at RealityMine. And we also have Adam Porner, who is our SVP of Business Development, also at RealityMine. So without further ado, I'm going to give the mic over to Luke.
Thanks, Marta. Hello, everyone. Thank you all for joining. It's a real pleasure to be here today with you. For those of you who are new to RealityMine, we're going to spend just a few minutes to kick off, providing a brief introduction to who we are, what we do, the kinds of clients we work with, and some of the key questions that our clients come to us to help them answer. So RealityMine has a superpower, and our superpower is our ability to see real behaviors in-app and across ecosystems, and that gives us the power to provide a clear view to customers, of competitors, and across the wider market. We have tech and enterprise clients. Those clients leverage our privacy-safe technology as part of their decision intelligence infrastructure. They leverage this capability to answer business questions relating to competitive threats, to inform investment decisions, to fuel competitive intelligence strategies, and also to respond to major shifts in the market. We're going to weave some of these key questions across the webinar as we dive into the topics here. So blind spots and first-party data. We hear from sophisticated data-driven organizations, and they tell us they are blind to what is happening outside of their own ecosystems. When they look at what's happening into competitors, they don't have visibility there. And why is that? This may well be a scenario that you're familiar with. Many digital platforms have incredibly sophisticated ways to understand what's happening inside their own platform. They have rich first-party data, see user sessions, engagement, transactions, the full conversion funnel. That visibility, though, stops when the user leaves the app, and that creates a blind spot. A user might browse your app, they open a competitor's, They search in Google, they search a product review, return sometime later on to complete an action. Yet most companies will be blind to most of those steps and only see a fraction within their own ecosystem. The result is that data-driven organizations are making strategic decisions with only part of the picture. So let's consider some of the questions that organizations are struggling to answer. Who are the most valuable users? So why are the most valuable users spending time on competitive platforms? How are new interfaces like AI shaping discovery and choices, and what product innovations are actually moving the market? There's a lot of risk, within these questions: customer churn, market share compression. How are customers going to find my brand in this new AI future? But frame positively by lifting the lid on competitor apps, turning a competitive threat into a competitive advantage, leveraging information asymmetry can be a great asset as we gather greater intel on our competitors than they do on us. We're going to look at some real world examples where first party data would leave you blind, and getting out of your first party data box enables you to navigate ever-changing ecosystems. When you look at these examples, please consider that these capabilities may be specific in a certain vertical, but consider how they could be leveraged across your industries. We're going to look at streaming, we look at food delivery, and we look at AI. These aren't solely relevant in those categories. Please consider how this could be leveraged within your categories too. On that, I'll hand over here to you, Adam.
Thank you, Luke. And great to be here and to be with you all. These are really critical business questions to address that you covered there. And what we're going to do here is provide a few examples of how RealityMine can help brands break out of the first-party data box for apps. And our first case study offers insights into app switching behaviors and what we can learn from them. And the key questions to address here are, why are my most valuable users spending time on competitive platforms? So we'll get into that with this first example. Now, consumers have so many options available to them today. So how does your brand fit into meeting their needs? And how can you gain greater visibility into their journeys, either before or after visiting your app? Now, consumers are at the center of everything that we do at RealityMine, and here's a visual representation of what a day is like for a consumer on her media journey. It's very complex. And as you can see, it's quite a crowded ecosystem in the media space. So in this example, we're using Netflix as a point of reference. And a key question is, what are the consumers doing when they're not viewing your service? Now, we evaluated which other streaming apps are the most popular destinations after bouncing from Netflix. We only looked at those who left Netflix within 10 minutes or less, hypothesizing that they didn't find what they wanted. So the key question is, where did they go? Now, among a sampling of key media apps, 61% landed on YouTube within 5 minutes of a Netflix session. And social media short form video options, as you can see, came next. And then alternative long form entertainment options were last. And what this shows is how competitive alternatives can be surprising and unexpected. Now let's dig a bit dig a bit deeper. Now, within with our in-app data capabilities, we can also reveal not just which app switches are most popular, but also the content, the pages, and the features within those apps. Now, our data reveals that Bounce Netflix users over-indexed on entertainment and film and animation. And this shows that consumers are still looking for that lean back entertainment, and their need was not met by Netflix, so they chose YouTube as an alternative. And additionally, in comparison to YouTube viewers overall, music channels were under-indexed for Netflix bouncers. So music didn't fulfill that need in the moment. And this is an area that we know is of concern for Netflix and most app owners to better understand which competitive alternatives are fulfilling that in the moment need. Now I'll turn it back over to Luke to discuss our second business opportunity using the food delivery industry as an example. Luke?
Thanks, Adam. We work with clients in categories where brand loyalty can be low, and getting a really clear picture of where you sit in that category is really critically important, and can be a cornerstone of making the right business decisions. So, this is some truisms here around what's important, work across all categories, but I think is especially important when brand loyalty is low. So we see scenarios where price, promotion, and product availability, the main battleground between yourselves and your principal competitor. You have to ask yourself, do you have the right tools in the toolkit to mitigate against those threats and make sure you're making the right confident decisions and helping to inform your leadership with the right signals to make those decisions for the business too. So what we see is competitors with strategies, and you have to work out, do we follow those competitors with certain promotional tactics? Do we try and match their service offering? Do we copy their product innovations? Some cases, better data on what competitors are doing and how customers are adopting those, the answers would be yes. In other scenarios, we might, customers may conclude that, if there's a new entrant in the market and they are, aggressively trying to take market share by heavily, discounting, heavily incentivizing customers through promotions, maybe in that scenario, the answer is no, let's not follow that path. They're only going to have a certain runway, and it's better to sit tight. We save our budget and go on the attack later on. We're going to, as Adam says, look into a scenario where it's essentially a duopoly. The food delivery marketplace in the US is now a duopoly between Uber Eats and DoorDash. And we can see from our in-app overall data and our in-app data, some really key insights around that market that can help inform our client strategies in this space. So when we look at an average month, 1 in 5 of the consumers have both of their two apps, and they're active across both of those two apps in a given month. So high degree of overlap between those two brands in terms of customer bases. When we look at those customers that start a session, so they're thinking about a food delivery order, they open a session, say on Uber Eats, 50% of those would then also look at the same restaurant in the DoorDash app. So high levels of overlap in terms of price comparison behaviors by the consumers there. Digging further into some of the in-app data, we can see that promotions used increased by the number of restaurants viewed. You might go, well, come on, Luke, that's not an amazing insight, right? Obviously, the more restaurants you view, the more promotions you're going to see. That's an obvious one. I think what it tells you though is, if you were dead set on getting something that evening from your local pizza restaurant, you just go straight to that restaurant's page on your preferred food delivery app. And in that scenario, there would, you would 16% of those would use a promotion when they make that transaction. If you're someone who's maybe not so sure on what you want, you don't have a dead set opinion on which restaurant you want to eat from, kind of bouncing through a few different restaurant pages within the app, there's a 4 percentage point increase that you would actually use a promotion when you place that order. So what that tells us, that promotions become increasingly important in scenarios where customers are not dead set on any one individual, restaurant chain, and can have an overly large impact in those scenarios in converting that customer to you instead of your competitor. We can also see, within our in-app data, which promotions are leveraged most by customers. So what's the conversion rate? And the top one here is, free item. So if you're a food delivery business or another business in a marketplace scenario, you can really start to leverage this kind of data to understand, which promotions are most effective, what's the ROI on those types of promotions for my competitors. Should we be, mimicking that scenario? Should we be setting a different path for ourselves? This level of information can support more effective decision making within these kinds of, aggressively competitive ecosystems. We'll try and bring this to life. We have a slide here that kind of demonstrates a user through a typical journey here. We'll look at this kind of through the lens of if you have someone from DoorDash looking at this data. This customer was a member of DoorDash. They have a Dash Pass. They're also an Uber One member, so likely a fairly regular food delivery user. They started the journey in DoorDash though, so that tells me that DoorDash was kind of the preferred platform. That's where the customer navigated to initially. You could probably say that the DoorDash had the first mover advantage in that context. Customer checked out a range of different restaurants there. They looked at 4 different restaurants. They immediately flipped to Uber Eats and had a look at a couple more there. Took a break and then they went back to DoorDash, settling on Hawaiian Bros, and ultimately then doing a price comparison on Hawaiian Bros between DoorDash and Uber Eats, and deciding to purchase from Uber Eats, which was purely a price and promotional driven decision at that point. So premium customers on both platforms, exposed to more promotions on DoorDash, but in this scenario, Uber was more compelling. So, this is kind of a microcosm of the data that in aggregate, a company like DoorDash could be leveraging to inform promotion, pricing, general marketing and loyalty strategies, not just based on their own first-party data, but when they combine that with what they're seeing across the ecosystem and across the strategies of their major competitor too. On that, back over to you, Adam.
Thanks, Luke. Yes, the Hawaiian Bros decision is a very deliberate one. So you can see, even for something as simple as food delivery on which restaurant to choose, it's very complex, and it's not as straightforward as you might think. It shows how that clearly that visibility into the full customer journey, can reveal valuable competitive intelligence. So now let's cover a third case study, and this one is on a critical and emerging topic, artificial intelligence. And here we'll illustrate how the rapid use of AI tools are influencing shopper journeys. So let me move the slide here. So here's some key questions to consider in order to truly understand the real effects that AI is having on the path to purchase. Gaining insights through behavioral data is the first step. And then the key question is, what can your brand do to address this challenge? So we'll be using the rise of ChatGPT on the shopper journey as a point of reference in this next example. And it's very important and rapidly changing, as you'll see. Now, we found that ChatGPT use before an Amazon shopping session has tripled in the last year. Tripled. So not only do we expect that this trend is going to continue, but it'll be critical to watch the impact that advertising on ChatGPT, as well as direct product purchase attribution will have. And it shows how behavioral data provides real-time access to identifying emerging trends, such as AI chatbot use, and to be able to track them over time. Not only are consumers engaging more with ChatGPT as part of their shopper journey, but they're also more intentional. So those coming from ChatGPT to Amazon shopping have nearly twice the purchase rate as those coming from Google by comparison. And this suggests that AI-assisted shoppers are more deliberate and ready to buy. That's the 13% versus the 7% there. Also, they're spending 38% more time on Amazon and have a 19% higher median order value than Google transitions. So these are substantial distinctions here. And our data also shows that this type of metric by mission type exists. So we could do this for grocery, we could do it for electronic purchases, CPG, consumer packaged goods, to illustrate the AI effect by category. And using this reliable cross-app and platform data can also help brands and sites get a true picture of AI's inroads and potential advantages. Now I'll pass it back over to Luke to sum up the implications of this information on your business. Luke?
Thanks, Adam. So we've seen three examples now, fast-paced, evolving marketplaces and ecosystems. And I think it's clear that sole reliance on first-party data would leave you blind to competitive threats and to major market shifts, as we've seen with AI. And that can leave you and your businesses vulnerable. But by facing into these challenges, by breaking out of that first-party data box, you can turn risk into reward. You can position yourself and your organizations for future opportunity, for future growth. We think there's a big opportunity out there, and we'd love to hear from some of you guys through the questions at the end of this webinar here now. So thank you all for your attention. I'll pass over to Marta and look forward to your questions.
Thank you guys for such a great presentation. So we have a few questions. Hopefully we can do a bunch of them. The first one is a question about how we do things, actually. So the question reads, how do you collect this data in a privacy-safe way? And how is it different from the traditional research? So I think, Luke, this probably is a question for you.
Yeah, happy to. I think hopefully my 10 years here gives me a decent platform to help answer this question. So yeah, we have our proprietary tech stack, which involves applications that consumers install, browser extensions and other capabilities. Consumers opt in to participate in measurement programs with ourselves and with our partners. They opt in, it's all consented. There's full transparency about what is being captured, for what purpose. So obviously no direct activation around this. This is all kind of anonymized data that's going to be used by businesses. There's no direct, as I said, activation from this. All data's encrypted. It's very stored all very securely. We have the relevant ISOs in place. We passed various audits for GDPR and other privacy standards. The second part of your question was relating to how does this differ from traditional research. I think it's clear that survey research has a very important role, particularly around understanding people's sentiment towards brands and around their future intentions. I think what people struggle with is actual recall of what they have done. What content did you watch on YouTube or on Netflix? Did you place that order on Uber Eats or on DoorDash? What was the sequence of events during a purchase journey? These things are steps that customers find very hard to recall accurately. And so that is where our technology and the data that we power into our customers enables a true picture of what is happening, not only from that individual perspective, but also when you look at that cohort of consumers, to give our customers a true view of what is happening in that disrupted user journey and in their wider ecosystems. I hope that answers the question.
Thank you. I think you definitely have that experience to answer the question. There's another one. I think this one's going to be for you, Adam, because it talks about the Netflix example. The question is, you showed where users go after they leave. How would our brand uncover similar app switching patterns?
Yes, thanks, Marta. And yeah, while I haven't been at RealityMine as long as Luke, I have been a long Netflix subscriber, so I can speak to this. It really doesn't matter which industry. Those are just an example in this case to be able to identify these competitive insights. But we can really see how people are engaging, and it's such a complex system, and where they're moving and back and forth, and that provides such great visibility into their journey. So they're engaged with which apps and really get a full map of that process across a wider ecosystem. And you can also do it based on timing. So in that case with the Netflix, it was 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 30 minutes. We could change it up depending upon what the industry is and modify the hypothesis or the results of the data based upon that consumer behavior, because there's just a flood of information. So to be able to filter that through and gather that insight is critical. And the visibility can helps provide moments of vulnerability or what opportunities exist, help strengthen products and features within the app to make it a better consumer experience.
Nice. Yeah. I think we have still some time. Another question I have here. If competitors are luring users away, like in the DoorDash example, how can we, RealityMine, help identify which levers matter most? So I think that is going to go for Luke, because you were talking about that case study.
Yeah, sure. I think there's a few layers to this to answer this question. Firstly, you need a good foundational data set, at the heart of it, right? Because all good decision making needs to be based on having, the right information, to inform that decision. So I think, what I'd say here is, when you're looking at competitive data, you need to make sure it's covering the right levers. So in a category like DoorDash, where price, promotion, delivery, are some of the key decision drivers for the customer, you need to make sure firstly that your source of data, your source of truth covers all of those kind of key vectors when a customer is making that decision. We are a foundational piece of what I call decision intelligence for businesses. So RealityMine data is a powerful data set that can help the right leaders within that business make the right decisions and have confidence in those decisions. And that can either be human driven decisions, right, that leaders in those business make about strategies and tactics. And it can also be data that feeds in signals into AI models that help algorithmically apps make decisions for themselves in terms of what what products to promote to which customers at what times, and which promotional strategies should deploy on which cohorts and so on. So it's hard to say, which levers matter the most. I'd say, firstly, we need to have that foundational data set as part of a decision intelligence infrastructure, and then leveraging that with the right data science skills, the right analytics skills to power effective business decisions, and support, as I said, signals into the right AI capabilities that the businesses have.
That's great. Thank you. I think that's all that we have time for. So if you have sent in your question, then remember that we'll get back to you within 24 hours. And if you think of any other questions after this webinar, you have Luke's and Adam's contact details in there. So feel free to reach out, and we will be more than happy to help you answer all of the questions regarding data. So thank you very much for joining us. Thank you, Adam. Thank you, Luke, for sharing with us all this information. And we'll hope to see you on the next webinar.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, everyone. Goodbye.